What is going on, guys? Today we're going to be tier ranking every single Star Wars live action lightsaber duel on a tier list. Now, I have 18 of the duels from the live action movies and of course also from a couple of the live action shows. I'm only including the duels that I consider an actual lightsaber duel. There's some that are like maybe sort of a duel, but not really. It has to be with lightsabers, except for the I'm including the Beskar spear as well because it has the same sort of purpose as a lightsaber, so why not include it? So we can include some of those duels from Mandalorian. And it also has to be between someone else who also has a lightsaber or a lightsaber equivalent thing. And it has to be something that also lasts like at least a minute. It can't be some quick like little, slash lightsabers a couple times and then it's done. Like for example, the scene on Tatooine in episode 1 between Qui-Gon and Darth Maul. I'm not counting that because that was really quick. That wasn't actually like a full-on duel. And it has to be an actual like serious duel, not a practice duel like the practicing we saw between Obi-Wan and Anakin within episode 5 of the recent Kenobi series. So there's a lot of rules there for what I consider a lightsaber duel, but those are the only ones we are including. Also, just live action. I haven't seen every single episode of all the cartoons, and I also know there's a ton of duels within those cartoons. I've seen some of them, but not enough to add them to the list, and also it would just make the list way too bloated, and I'm not trying to be here forever. I just want to talk about these live action duels. We are rating them on pretty much everything that you can possibly rate a lightsaber duel on, not just the choreography and how it looks, that's definitely very important to it, but also based on the story and the context surrounding the duel. But of course, how fun and exciting the duel is does also matter a ton as well. So let's jump right into this, starting off with the first ever lightsaber duel within Star Wars, and which also, was called A New Hope later on, but actually people don't know this. A lot of people don't know this. At first, it was just called Star Wars. And this is the duel between Ben Kenobi and Darth Vader on the Death Star. Now, I think for 1977, this is of course something that was definitely revolutionary, and I know from a lot of people who were seeing it in 1977, they always tell me that yes, it was incredible seeing this for the first time on screen because it was unlike anything they've ever seen before. So of course, in that context, it deserves some credit. But I mean, you compare it to everything else here, it's so just meh. And even in terms of the story, I actually don't think the emotion is really that significant here until you see the later films. And if of course you're watching it in chronological order, or not chronological order, in release order, then you're not even going to get the context of what's going on here until later movies anyways, and so that moment won't really be that impactful when you're first watching it, which I do prefer watching it in release order. I think is the best way to watch it, but this one lightsaber duel definitely loses some of its value because of that, which is just what happens, I guess. So the emotion isn't really there in this duel, but it also doesn't have good choreography or like any intense like action to it. It's just a very, two dudes sitting there kind of slapping sticks at each other. That's kind of what it feels like. So I'm not crazy about this one. The only reason I'm not giving it a D, I'm gonna give it C, is because it was very revolutionary and innovative for its time. So that's enough for me to call it a C tier. And obviously with the context of everything else that came after it, it's really impactful for that. But of course, just on its own, it's not all that great. So C tier is, I think, good enough for me to put it there. But then we get a massive improvement in Empire Strikes Back with the duel between Luke and Vader. So much better. I mean, this was, of course, only, 3 years after, and they significantly improved on the choreography and just the scenery as well. Like, the environment in the first one was kind of boring. It was just that one little room in the Death Star, but this one was something else. I mean, Bespin's already one of the best planets in Star Wars, in my opinion, and the interior of this building on Bespin was so cool. The way they had this smoke filling up the room, and you can just see the lightsabers, and you can see their like shadows and such between there. Really cool room. And then they take it, of course, to another area where Darth Vader eventually reveals that he is, of course, Luke's father. So in terms of story, there's so much importance to this duel, and it is a very good looking duel that's very intense and actually has some good stakes to it. I like this one a lot more. It's definitely going to get A tier. This one really makes Vader feel like a force to be reckoned with, and therefore it's deserving of that. But what I think is even better is the duel we get in episode 6, Return of the Jedi. I love this duel so much. Of course, they're on the new Death Star, and of course Luke has much better skills at this point. He's much more experienced, so he's a much better fighter in this one. Therefore, the choreography in this fight does feel a lot cleaner because Luke's able to do a lot more. And I think what makes this one the best is, of course, having the dialogue between Luke and Vader be very impactful, because now at this point Luke knows that Vader is his father, so the duel is very, very different. Whereas in the Empire Strikes duel, he didn't know that until the very, very end, after he gets his hand chopped off. And this one also has Palpatine there watching the whole time, and Palpatine eventually gets involved, and then Vader, of course, saves Luke. It's got an incredible story, and it's one of the best parts of Return of the Jedi. Actually, I would say it is the best part of Return of the Jedi. And like I said, there's a lot of cool parts in this duel. It also cuts in between the Battle of Endor between this as well. And I love the part where Luke just takes his lightsaber and starts kind of swiping it at Vader as hard as he can, and actually cuts off Vader's hand as well, just like what Vader did to him back in episode 5. So there's a lot of good stuff to this duel. It's great. So overall, in the original trilogy, I think the last two duels significantly better than that first one, which is good because that just means the duels got better as the trilogy went along, although I do prefer Empire Strikes Back as a movie over Return of the Jedi. Of course, next we have the Darth Maul duel with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versing him in The Phantom Menace. I don't like The Phantom Menace. It's definitely my least favorite Star Wars movie, but the duel in the end of this film is definitely the best part of that movie, and it's one of the only good things about that movie. The music's incredible. John Williams' score is just fantastic. I mean, it's always been fantastic in all the Star Wars films, but this one, the Duel of the Fates, I mean, it goes off. It really goes off. And Darth Maul, although as a villain, he's not that interesting to me until the Clone Wars cartoon, but within this movie, I just really didn't care for him. So this duel definitely didn't have as much story importance because him as a character, I just didn't have that much care for, that understanding for. Not care in terms of, like, I know you're not supposed to care about the villains, but in terms of just understanding who they are and what their motivations are and such. And I honestly never really felt that with Darth Maul. So that was definitely something that brought the duel down just a tiny bit. But in terms of the choreography and the intensity and some of the emotion that comes later on with, of course, Qui-Gon dying, a lot of great stuff. And the way Obi-Wan finally slices him in half, slices Maul in half, not obviously killing him because of what happens later on in the cartoons, but just a really great duel all around. I'm going to give this one S tier, but I don't think I'm going to put it above that Return of the Jedi one. I just prefer that one just a tiny bit over the Darth Maul duel, even though the Darth Maul duel is still incredible, definitely deserves the S tier. This next one is the one from Attack of the Clones. I have both of these duels separate. There's the one where it's Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Count Dooku, and then the one where Yoda comes in later and versus Count Dooku. The one where it's just Anakin and Obi-Wan, I actually don't really like it. I'm going to put it in C. I'm going to put it above Obi-Wan versus Vader in A New Hope, though, because at least there's some decent, choreography here, but it's definitely not as well directed as some of the other ones. You can kind of feel it. There's like one really awkward scene where they're just kind of swinging their lightsabers back and forth, Anakin and Count Dooku, and it just looks clunky. I don't know why that was. I don't know if it was because Christopher Lee is getting kind of old at this point and they couldn't really do anything too crazy with him. I don't really know, but it never felt like a duel that was all that well done. And it's not very long either. It's kind of over pretty quick. But when Yoda comes in and takes over and starts fighting Count Dooku, that's where I think things start to get a lot better. And I actually prefer this duel a little bit more, but not by that much. It was really cool seeing Yoda dueling after not seeing him ever do that before this point, but it doesn't end up being anything that's too amazing compared to some of the other duels. But I think as a whole, it has a lot of fun to it, and the location's, I guess, kind of cool. It's that like factory place on Geonosis, so I don't know, it's a cool duel. It's just not going to get much higher than B tier. Then we get into episode 3, which has 5 duels, which is just insane. It's definitely the most amount of duels we've had in a single Star Wars property in terms of, if you go by film. Obviously, if you count the Clone Wars series as a whole, there's like plenty, but the first duel against Count Dooku, I think, is better than the duel they had against Count Dooku in episode 2, but I don't think it's better than the one between Yoda and Count Dooku in episode 2, so I'm just going to put it a little bit below there. I really do like how it ends with Anakin killing Count Dooku with the 2 lightsabers just kind of like slicing off his head. It starts kind of building upon his fall to the dark side, because it's obviously not something that a Jedi should normally be doing, and I think it plays out pretty well, and it's overall, I would say, a decent enough duel. It's just not that great compared to some of the other ones. Obi-Wan versus General Grievous. I don't know about this one. I'm gonna give this top of B maybe, because it has a lot of fun moments in it, but I wish it lasted a little bit longer in terms of Obi-Wan actually fighting Grievous with all 4 of his lightsabers, because most of this scene is not actually even a duel. There's a lot of parts where like there's like the chase scene, and then later on Obi-Wan has to use a gun to actually finish him off. But like he chops off his other hands pretty fast, so we don't actually get to see Grievous with the 4 lightsabers all that long. And I think that's my biggest negative with this duel, and what keeps it away from possibly being an A or S. And of course the story surrounding it's not all that strong. It's just Grievous. We don't really get to see more of Grievous and understand him more till the Clone Wars cartoons. Clone Wars cartoons really adds a lot of context to a lot of stuff that happens in the prequels in the Star Wars franchise. So yeah, I think it's B though. I think it's pretty good. I'm actually gonna put it below this. I was thinking about which one I prefer. I'm gonna drop it just below here because this one's a little bit more exciting maybe, and just seeing Yoda fighting for the first time is pretty damn cool. Mace Windu versus Palpatine, or I guess the whole Jedi Council versus Palpatine, is gonna get D. I don't know if this one's going against my rules by even calling it a duel, because you know it's not really like that long. I don't even know if it would be considered a minute, but whatever. I'm including it anyways. But to me it's D, because now of course the scene at the end where Palpatine eventually gets the lightning in his face, like that scene's pretty cool. But leading up to that, the fact that Palpatine just smokes the whole Jedi Council without even trying is cool. Like I like that he's that powerful, he should be, but the way it's directed and choreographed is so shit, because when you watch it, the Jedi just stand there and do nothing. They just kind of let Palpatine kill them. It's so poorly done. It felt so rushed. They could have made it a much cooler scene where Palpatine like kills them in this really badass fight, and you can tell the Jedi are really trying hard, but they get outclassed by Palpatine because of how powerful he is. But it doesn't feel like that at all. It just feels like an old man just killed 5 Jedi, and the Jedi just were like in shock, and they were just standing still or something, like they weren't trying. It made no sense. I don't know. But the scene itself, it does lead to some cool stuff, I guess. I just didn't really like what was going on before there, of course. So yeah, unfortunately it's going to get D tier. It's the only duel that might even be in D tier. I don't think any of these others are deserving of that. I don't know. But of course, Palpatine versus Yoda in episode 3. This one is pretty solid. I'm gonna give it top of A. I mean, it was pretty awesome to see. Obviously the build up to this was great, and the scenery was amazing. Getting to see Yoda flip all around Palpatine and such, it's just really, really great. I think Yoda's duels have always been kind of fun. It's cool how like Palpatine utilizes the environment around him. I always love the duels where the environment's being utilized in some way. Those are always some of my favorites. So this one, it deserves A. Of course, Obi-Wan versus Anakin, that's top of S. That's the best duel in Star Wars history. None of these down here are going to compete with it. It's the most emotional, it's the most intense, it's the longest, it has the best choreography, it just looks the best, the environment is the best. On Mustafar, it is such a beautiful place for these two to be dueling, and holy shit is it amazing. It's the best part of that movie. It's one of the best parts of Star Wars, like at all. The music is absolutely incredible. One of the best soundtracks from Star Wars history. So I always go back to watch this duel every now and then because of just how amazing it is. And it's like, it's just that great. It's that great. It's one of my favorite action scenes in any movie, period. Love it. I love it. I just wish the lightsabers looked a little bit better, because when you look at how lightsabers look nowadays compared to how they did in the older movies, it's night and day difference. Which leads me to the next duel, would be of course Rey versus Kylo Ren, which is in my opinion the best looking duel in Star Wars history. The lightsabers look so incredible in The Force Awakens, and especially in this duel. The way the lightsabers kind of bounce off of the snow, you can see like the snow almost melting from how hot these lightsabers are, and you can really feel the intensity of these lightsabers in this scene. A lot of people give this duel shit in a lot of different ways. First of all, people don't buy the fact that Rey was able to beat Kylo Ren. I buy it completely, because A, Kylo Ren was not trying to kill Rey here. He was clearly not trying to. He wanted to actually have her join him, so that was something. Whereas Rey was kind of just using a lot of aggression that she had probably built up from what he just did to Han Solo. And also, I mean, Rey's a decent fighter. Of course, we learn later on that she actually is, you know, a Force user, so that's why she was able to do it in the first place. And we know why she's a Force user later on, because of her being the granddaughter of Palpatine. But what I think makes this fight really make sense is that Kylo Ren is emotionally and physically wounded here. He was shot with the Wookiee blaster, and of course he just killed his own father. So of course he's a little bit shocked, he's a little bit off his game, and he just got shot with a Wookiee blaster that the movie previously made a pretty big deal to show off how powerful that Wookiee blaster is, and he got shot with it in the hip. So yeah, of course he's going to be off his game. They have a little bit of a duel with Finn and Kylo right before this. I didn't include that as a separate one, I'm just going to kind of include it in the same one, and I think that part's fun and all, but I really love the part where Rey gets the lightsaber and we get to see her go against Kylo. I think it is really well directed. Yes, they're not doing some crazy like Jedi stunts like they do in the prequel duels, but that's because they're not in a different, they're in a completely different era. The era of dueling changes throughout the Star Wars series, and I think that's a pretty obvious thing. And this one, I'm honestly going to give it top of S. No, not top of S, second. No, I'll give it third. I can't put it above this one, but I'm going to put it right here. I know that's like probably sacrilege to some people to put this even close to these ones or higher than Maul's duel, but I really do like this duel. I like Force Awakens way more than the average person. It's actually my favorite Star Wars movie. So yeah, that's definitely part of it. But in terms of the visuals especially, this is the best looking one. And I do like the story behind this duel. It's obviously, we don't really understand exactly what's going on at this point in the movie. Don't like the answers they gave us in The Rise of Skywalker really at all. But in the context of just the film, I think it does work and it has a lot of good moments to it. And yeah, it's one of my favorite duels for sure. And then we get the one from The Rise of Skywalker. The Last Jedi doesn't really have a typical lightsaber duel, doesn't really have one at all, so I just didn't include any of the things that you can maybe consider duels in those movies, but like I said, I don't consider them duels, so I'm not including them. This one has some cool moments. I don't like The Rise of Skywalker's like story, a lot of the story. I think a lot of it's messy, all over the place, of course, but just talking about this duel on its own, I don't really think it's that bad. Like, I actually kind of enjoyed. I know a lot of people give a lot of shit for, oh, she's swinging it like a lightsaber, she's swinging a lightsaber like a baseball bat. Okay, like, she's not like trained the same way as a lot of the other Jedi have been, so of course she's gonna use it in kind of a weird way, but I kind of like the almost grittiness of these duels from the sequels. And I'm not like a sequel defender. I don't think the sequel trilogy was that well done as a whole, but there's a lot of moments I really like about it, and the duels were honestly something that I thought was strong for the most part. So I'm gonna give this Rise of Skywalker duel, I'm gonna put it, no, not the A tier, maybe at top of B. If this was a better movie and the story surrounding this scene was better, I think I would like it more, because I do like a lot of things about it. I do like how Rey's like almost trying to mimic what Kylo's doing. Like, this duel doesn't feel like a duel where they hate each other and they're trying to kill each other. It feels more like a duel where they're trying to one-up each other as much as they can. They're like, oh, let me show you this cool thing I can do. Like, Kylo was using his lightsaber like backwards, like, you know, he's holding it like backwards, and then Rey does the same thing and tries to use it that way just because she's trying to try what he's doing. I just think that's kind of cool. And the environment's beautiful as well. They're on the destroyed Death Star and the water's all splashing up. It's a really nice looking duel for sure. And then we have 5 different duels from the TV shows so far. I'm not expecting to see another duel for quite some time because the next Star Wars show is Andor. Once we get Mandalorian and Ahsoka and such, I think I'm going to be expecting to see more duels. But Kenobi did just recently end, and so we do have 3 duels there. We had 2 in The Mandalorian. The one between Ahsoka and, I forget this lady's name, but she was using the spear in that episode where Ahsoka appeared, and it was the first duel we saw in quite some time. Well, I guess since The Rise of Skywalker. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a good duel. It wasn't anything too special, though. It was just kind of a standard duel. I think a lot of people were talking shit about it because they didn't really understand how Ahsoka could possibly be losing to a non-Force user, whereas she is a Force user, and it was just like you can just literally use the Force on her and get her away. And I kind of agree with some of those points. So maybe that brings it down a little bit, but I just think Ahsoka looks so awesome in this, and it was well directed and it had a nice scenery, like it had nice scenery to it. But yeah, I can kind of understand what people are saying about that. Maybe there was a maybe there was a reason for her not to use the Force. I know she wanted information out of her for where Thrawn was at, but she could have just gotten out of her in an easier way, maybe. I don't know. I might have to give it top of C, because now that I'm really thinking about it, that is true. That is a big plot hole I feel like that duel might have. But I don't know. It's still cool to see Ahsoka fighting in a duel. It was really cool, obviously. But next up we have Mando versus Moff Gideon with the Darksaber. Just seeing a duel with the Darksaber in and of itself was really awesome. So that alone, I'm gonna give this a B tier rating just because. I mean, come on now, you know. Now we have the Kenobi duels. This is gonna be a hard one because I really like a lot of things about these duels, but there's also some stuff I don't like as much. This first one in episode 3 where they were on that like sandy planet. I forget what the planet name was that they were on. I don't remember the name of it exactly, but it wasn't mostly sand, but there was an area that they were fighting that was sand. I didn't love this one. I did in the moment because it was, I mean, the first time we're seeing Obi-Wan and Darth Vader go at it, you know, in so long. So, of course, it was really awesome to see for the first time, but the more I thought about it, it wasn't the best it could possibly have been, and there was a couple of things where they felt a little bit weird in how it was done. I do like that Obi-Wan lost, and I do like how he was thrown into the fire. I thought that was all really, really great. So, honestly, I'm just gonna give it... I'm gonna give it probably B. I don't think it was that great, but it's higher than that. Yeah. No, higher than that. Is it higher than Grievous, though? No. Yeah, no, yeah. Okay, I will. I'll say it's higher than Grievous. I just didn't like, especially, like, there was that one part at the end where he threw him in the fire, and then, like, you know, Tala shoots, some of the stormtroopers that were there, and they just, for some reason, they can't get Kenobi, even though he was like right there. And I know there was fire, but they could have just went around the fire and got, like, I don't know, it was just a little clunky how it was done. Reva versus Vader, easy A tier. I don't even have to think about that one. That one was so damn awesome because this one really showed off how powerful Vader was. The way he was fighting Vader without even like, or the way he was fighting Reva without even trying was so awesome. He was just using the Force. He didn't even bother with his lightsaber. He's like, nah, I'm just gonna use the Force to fight her. And she was like slicing at him and stuff, and he was just dodging it and using the Force. It was so amazing. And then he steals her lightsabers and gives her one of them to have her fight back, and then they have a little duel. But it's just like, oh my god, this is so damn good. It really shows off how badass Vader is. And the only thing keeping this out of S, to be completely honest, is the fact that he doesn't finish her off. I don't believe that Vader would not finish her off completely after all that. He just gives her a little love tap in the stomach and then she somehow survives. I thought that was the stupidest thing ever, but the duel itself was really solid, so it's getting A tier for that reason. And then the final duel between Obi-Wan and Vader in the Kenobi series, I think was pretty awesome. I do. I think people, you know, give it a lot of shit because, you know, how could Vader possibly lose to Obi-Wan? I believed it. Vader was kind of letting his emotions get to him in this duel, I think, and Obi-Wan was really, really just like focusing the best he could possibly focus in this duel. And there's a lot of emotion behind this duel. I think it was really cool in terms of the environment as well. So I'm going to give this an A tier, but just, yeah, I'll put it just above that one. I think that would be good. Yeah. Okay. So that's my completed list. I don't know. There's not too many duels that are like garbage in Star Wars. Most of them I think are pretty solid. But I think this is going to be my final ranking. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. I will see you all in my next one. Peace out.